Annual meeting of the Park Board. I'd like to note that we have a quorum. 6 of the 7 members are present, and we are expecting Sandy Treble, the 7th member. He should be back. He should be here by about 9. He had a conflict. Before we go into the meeting any further, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Does anybody in the public wish to speak? Make comment. And can everybody in the public hear me? Thank you. Okay, no comment. Next item is approval of the minutes from the meeting of August 17th. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Peter. Second by Henry. Are there any deletions, corrections, changes? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Chairman's report. It's been an interesting year, to say the least. I think I'd just like to touch on a few highlights. Probably the most important, almost the most important, but certainly what's going to affect us most into the future, I think, is we are moving ahead and continue to move ahead with the transfer of title. We moved, obviously, from working on the authority to a coalition with the IDA, which I think is continuing to at this point continuing to progress and looks very hopeful. We've had some good progress here on the old base, in that we did agree to the transfer of property, pending survey of the Heritage Trail to the city, and also we have agreed in theory to Assemblyman Ortloff's suggestion for a museum and National Cemetery complex here on the old base. We've had a number of new businesses come on board. No way can I remember them all, but some of them more prominent, or ones that look to be more prominent, are those such as Westinghouse Air Brake, Murray, Trans-Ed, the expansion of the Wood Group from their test facility to the machine shop, and there were others, and I just not right off the top of my head I'm remembering well. I'd like to also make note of the fact that we have progressed very well with the senior housing with Lake Forest, which is, I think, a tremendous need here in the community, and I'm hopeful that will proceed quickly here in the next week or so that they can start to break ground and get that project going for us. I think that'll be tremendous. I think one of the items that hasn't gotten much attention, it seems, in the press, but if you look closely, or I think it has gotten a lot of attention from individuals coming in, is the rail link, which is very obvious to those who come in on Route 22, or anybody who has been out on the base with the rebuilding of the existing rail track and the laying of the new rail from the heating plant going over to Route 22 in Bombardier. And I think probably one of the biggest projects that has totally disappeared, and I'm sorry this has happened, and I hope the press will listen to me today and maybe go out and see what's going on, and it certainly deserves comment, and that's Bombardier's test track. They are moving very rapidly with that. The track is being laid. The building, which is, I believe, 30,000 square feet, the steel is in process of going up, and that entire project is moving along very rapidly. And I think the point here is this will be only the second of this type of facility in the U.S., and I've heard rumors that the other facility will shut down when this one's operational. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But what's interesting is the 30 or 40 jobs involved with this are permanent jobs. They're not going to go up and down necessarily with the movement of contracts, because Bombardier will be testing vehicles and engines for other companies. And so this is a permanent facility that'll have permanent employment and high-line jobs. And I think it's a very important one for us. And certainly any golfer will be aware of it, because there's a hell of a sand trap at the end of which tee I'm not sure, but that's for catching the train. So don't get in that sand trap, please. But anyway, I think that project is excellent and certainly moving along well, and a credit to us. We also had a very good air show that certainly brought us a world-class entertainment for the area, and it also proved to be an excellent marketing tool for PARC, and brought us some good leads and some world-class companies. As to the future, I think we need to step up our marketing efforts. We need to analyze what we've done in the past, look closely at what worked and what didn't work, and then we also need to look to new items, new ways to market the base, new areas to market in, and also we need to look to bring on a very strong marketing individual, someone who has a good ability to market us throughout the world. We need to continue to move towards transfer of title, and at the same time the extension of the ramp down, which is very important to our continuance and operation here. We need to make another effort, and a stronger effort this time, at trying to establish or get a military presence or federal government presence of some type here on the base. We need desperately to have the big dollars of the government behind us in order to maintain the air facilities. It's very expensive, and about the only way we're going to be able to do that, it looks like, is to get some type of a military presence. So that's one thing we need to work very, very hard on. We also need to continue, and we've had a number of meetings recently. We have been working very closely with the area development, and in getting them to work with us in bringing more industries here onto the base, but also to work in conjunction with them in the construction of new buildings, which we at this point have run out of our better buildings of the larger nature that the corporations are looking for. And also we need to look for these businesses that are looking for rail service, which we have and we will now have in a much better capacity because of the upgrade of the rail lane. So we need to work to those. And last, I received a call from our greatest citizen. How do I want to call him? I won't say he's necessarily always our greatest fan, because he certainly is critical of us, which he should be, and that is Ken Mills. And he apologized for not being here. Ken rarely misses a meeting, and he just simply asked me that if I would pass on the fact that he hopes we will continue to work very hard together and with the politicians and the other leaders in the county, the state, and the town and city, to make this thing work, because this is the future of the North Country. Thank you. I will now turn it over. We have a financial report.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to reserve the financial report to the President's report and
Okay.
committee report.
Okay, no problem. We'll then move to the President's report. Dan?
Good morning, everyone. What we're going to do today, because it's our annual meeting, is we're going to start with each of the staff members and each of the department heads, and we're going to allow you to listen to them tell you about what they've done for the year and some things that are happening in the future and where we're going. So, Bruce, do you have the wait for my engineer here to get ready. You have the first. Yeah, no, those are for the meeting. Okay. Go right to the program. The first thing that we'd like to do in starting out this morning is kind of explain to everybody and bring everybody up to speed where we are in this process of As you know, earlier in the year, we were going to pursue the direction of becoming an authority, okay? We changed direction and we started the process now to work through the local IDA. What had to happen here is we did a verbal to the OEA asking that the CCIDA become the LRA in the transition of the property. Through that verbal commitment, they acknowledged that this was the proper municipality and will allow us to continue to proceed in that direction. So with a yes answer, this process continues on, and we travel over here following C down, okay? The CCIDA advised PARC to submit an application, which PARC has done. The CCIDA has approved that resolution and acknowledged the fact that they will now go to the OEA back here in writing and ask for permission to start the transfer process. PARC's application is complete. We are now in the process of negotiating with the CCIDA a master lease, a long-term lease, okay, for the transition of the property. And as we finish this, we will follow C all the way through until we do the transfer, the total transfer of the property. So, as you can see, the CCIDA is in the process of preparing their written document to the OEA. PARC has completed their application, has the resolution. We are negotiating the lease, and at the same time we are doing that, PARC is preparing its business plan, okay, to make this happen. Next slide, Chris. I would like, as we go through, as each department gives their little presentation, if anybody has any questions, why don't we hold them until the end, and then we can ask all the questions at once, okay? I'm sure all of you have seen this photo a million times, okay? But in this whole process of becoming a part of the IDA and our continued mission will be working together to develop new jobs and new opportunities for social and economic well-being of the North Country, and in doing so in a financially and environmentally sound manner. And this statement here tells you how we are directing and setting up our marketing program in our reorganization of our management staff. Next. The key objectives are, number one, that we target world-class employers who will create long-term opportunities, solid pay and pay benefits, training, education, and challenge the growth of the North Country. At the same time, we are targeting world-class employers who are leaders in their industry. The three main categories which we're pursuing are aerospace, transportation, high-tech, biotech, and environmental. We are here to protect and enhance and leverage the tremendous assets left to us by the Air Force, the multimodal, the industrial, recreational, and cultural, and to develop a team approach with our new tenants, with the people at PARC, and with the county as stakeholders and partners in the development of this whole region. Just to refresh everyone a little bit, what we've done here is to do some personalization to let you know what we have, okay? On the old base, we have approximately 250 acres, approximately 800 acres in this area, which we would classify or intend to be our part of our EDC. 200 acres over here, which is the golf course, 1,400 in the flight line aviation section, and approximately 850 acres to the west side, for a total of about 3,500 acres. That's without easements, which would bring us up to approximately 5,000 total acres. As we go forward, you've heard that we need to apply in two different methods. We need to apply for a PBT, which is a public benefit transfer for aviation development, which conveyance can be done for $1 or less. Those lands need to remain the title of the community. The other part of it is the EDC, which is at fair market value or less. Those lands and those properties are available to sell and possibly convey title to individual owners. We, in creating our business plan, have decided that our first application and our first scenario will be that the rail link, okay, or Arizona Avenue here, will be our dividing line. This will be our public benefit transfer, the aviation side, okay? And we incorporated into that the 200 acres over here, which run out to Route 9, and the golf course. The reason we did that is because all of your runoff from the 270 acres of ramp area and the runway all run this direction, and most of it is wetlands. And as we develop these other areas, we will need to proceed with wetlands mitigation, therefore allowing this part of our property and the utilization of the golf course and recreation area to pick up some of that area for us. The area you see here will be our economic, or our EDC transfer, which will include the old base. When you see the heavy red line through here, that is right now our EDZ, our Economic Development Zone, which allows for our future tenants benefits. And we can go back, Bruce Stedman is heading that department up for us. We're going back right now and looking where we can provide some benefits to our existing tenants in these areas, which will help us develop it. Down the road, we are considering along Sharon Avenue here. These houses are in pretty rough shape. We're considering, and we have a request for qualifications and information out currently to demo a large group of these for industrial use, because this land is high and dry and it backs up to Sharon Avenue, which is industrial in the city. The 155 units for the city are located in this area, as well as the units where the Air Force had spent approximately $11 million before closing down the base are over in this area. And we are currently negotiating with the real estate marketer who will sell them in joint effort with properties he has in Florida, North and South Carolina. At this point, bringing you up to date a little bit of where we're at, I'd like to start now with our staff presentations. And we're going to start out with our financial department, who is headed up by Julie. I'm sure you're all familiar with Julie. She's been here for several years. And Julie will bring you up to date a little bit on our financial information.
Soft voice. Can y'all hear me back there? You heard the y'all? That's because I was in Maryland for 10 years. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but when I graduated from Plattsburgh State, I moved to Maryland, and I lived and worked in the Washington area for almost 10 years. While there, I worked mostly trying to secure, defend, and justify federal budgets to OMB in Congress. So when I came here, it wasn't really out of my territory, but I never expected it to be as challenging and also as rewarding as it's been just in the past couple of years. And I mainly came back because I have family here, and I really miss the North Country. There's been a lot of work, especially when I first started here in the finance department, and a lot of the accomplishments we've had, I owe a lot of gratitude, especially to my staff. Just without embarrassing her too much, if I could have Lily Ridge stand up. She's my finance manager. And Kim Trumbull is my finance assistant. And I'm not sure if I see Rocky out there. Rocky Hartfield, she heads up our human resources department. I guess she's not out there. I also owe a lot of thanks to the board for their strong dedication. I've witnessed a lot of dedication and a lot of hours that they've put in since I've been here. We also have a finance committee that helps direct and provide oversight to the finance department. That's chaired by Mr. Henry Fortin, and another member is Gil Dukin and Randy Beach. Now, go ahead and read my report now. Rather than just trying to give you a snapshot in time of PARC's fiscal year, I thought it'd be helpful to provide an overview of PARC's funding history. So we've been in existence as PARC as an entity for about 3 years now, September of '95. And I think, as you can see from our chart, there's been a tremendous amount of growth in funding. And fortunately, as you can see in the green, our other funds revenues are getting up there, and they need to get up there in order to sustain us once the federal funding and the state funding levels out or eventually dries out. I don't think that'll happen for a while, but we have some ways to go. In 1995, we had $893,000. In 1997 and 98, we've really grown, and by 98 and 99, we'll be at $12 million in budgeted revenues. Those include grant funds as well as our tenant revenues. In 1998, as you see, the tenant income went from $386,000 to $1 million, which I think is a tremendous accomplishment. In 1999, the PARC other funds is at 1.2, but that's just based on what we know now. I would expect that with new tenants, that number will go up. And in the year 2000, the $2 million is just a best guess. And with Dan's good work and hard work, I think we could probably exceed that number. No. The federal funding increased through 99 due to the addition of the Economic Development Administration. They've given us $2.5 million to do renovations to the main hangar. And in 1999, we hope that we will get another $2.5 million to do additional work to the main hangar building. We also, if you see in 99, had quite an increase in federal funding relating to the Base Conversion Agency. They're providing us with additional funding to close down the central heat plant. And in 1998, they gave us some additional money to actually pay directly the natural gas expenses. The caretaker agreement expires in September of 2000. However, we also expect that with negotiated ramp downs, we could get additional funding based on performance measures that we set for ourselves. And that all has to do with taking title to the property and creating jobs. And based on different performance measures, hopefully they will kick in additional funding. The Office of Economic Adjustment funding runs out in 1999. Next year is our last year of funding. State funding, we'll expect that to stay level. However, the state has always been very cooperative in providing us with additional funding for special projects such as the railing project, which we received an additional $1.9 million this year. This slide, although it's pretty difficult to read the numbers and to see what all those different colors mean, I think it shows you that we have a lot of different funding sources out there. The Base Conversion Agency is our primary funding source for the caretaking of the property. The Office of Economic Adjustment, as I said before, will be running out, but they've provided funding for 4 years for administrative expenses and also some special studies. ESDC has given us funding for administration as well as construction. New York State Department of Transportation I've just talked about, and EDA I've just talked about. The other miscellaneous funding sources include the FAA, which we had initially in 1996. I would expect them to kick in funding once we take title via PBT to the new base. They will be there for funding. And other funding sources include the USDA and NYSERDA, which is New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And then the other funding, of course, is PARC zone revenues from tenant income. Just to give you a sense of the volume, PARC has received a total of 17 grants in 3 years. PARC Finance is currently managing 8 active grants totaling almost $14 million. New funding is also being sought from USDA for next year, and other New York State agencies and private foundations will also be sought for special projects. This is my favorite slide because I think it's showing that we're spending the money in places where we ought to be spending the money. 51% of our budgeted funds is coming from construction, or is going to construction, and okay, 15%. The salaries are broken out between redevelopment and buildings and grounds. I did that so you could get a sense for the caretaker money, which I said was our primary funding source. There's 15% in salaries and fringe. However, you can't really look at that as overhead because it's actually the people that are providing the work and support to keep these properties maintained. 19% of it is just the other administrative costs associated with buildings and grounds. It's actually purchasing materials to keep the buildings intact. 4% is redevelopment, salaries and fringe. 2% is marketing, that also includes travel for marketing. 3% for other administrative costs. And 2% for landlord renovations and other services. That's when we have to go into a building. If we have a tenant that needs to be in there in a very short period of time, we go in there and we try to get the building up to code and getting it ready for occupancy, and maybe providing some other services as necessary. 4% for heat, utilities, insurance, and rents. The others I've already spoken about. That's about it.
Next, we'll have Art Graves. Art heads up our buildings and grounds department. He coordinates the budget with the Air Force, and all these guys you see running around repairing all of the services and keeping this place looking the way it is. It's totally Art's responsibility.
Thank you, Dan. Make Bruce's job easy here. I have only one slide, a few brief comments. I'll just touch on some salient points. The details, I think, you can find in the annual report and the handouts that are available outside. Buildings and Grounds has as its mission to satisfy the requirements of the caretaker agreement. That's our primary mission. Secondly, but equally as important, we support PARC's redevelopment efforts. To do that, we have 45 permanent workers and about 10 temporary or seasonal workers. An example of some of the, a bit of the financial impact that Buildings and Grounds has on the area. We currently oversee 12 contracts that are valued at about $2 million. 10 of those 12 contracts are with local firms. In addition to that, we purchase, as you can see, over $800,000 worth of materials and equipment. More than 60% of that are from local vendors. Some of the work accomplishments during the past year, we do renovations, asbestos abatement, and demolition in virtually every building that is prepared for a park tenant. Two of the biggest this year were the Supply building. That's a 100,000 square foot building that currently houses the Westinghouse Air Brake Company and Bombardier. We also did 5 what we call incubator buildings. Those are buildings 6,000 square feet up to 14,000 square feet that we make available for companies that are moving into the area and will hopefully expand into larger buildings. Workers have been in that area in spite of the ice storm and the snow and ice that accumulated out there. Within 4 weeks after the ice storm, we were able to land a 747 wide-body jet out there. So they're doing a terrific job. Maintaining roads and grounds, that's another area that is easily evident. All you have to do is drive by the base. We get a lot of comments about the fine work that the buildings or the roads and grounds fellows are doing. Special events, we support any of the special activities that Robin puts on for us. We provide support to set up, as well as assist the people that are putting on those shows during the events, take care of any last-minute problems that they might have. Finally, I think everybody knows about the ice storm. One of the things that we're really proud about here is that within hours after the ice storm, we were able to restore power to the entire facility here on the base through our own 46,000 volt transmission line. Our fellows got out, cleared the roads, made it possible for the base to effectively reopen by the weekend, which was a good thing because then we were able to provide a good deal of support to the community. We unpickled 8 buildings that had previously been closed, and at the peak of the relief effort, we were housing over 1,200 volunteers, providing them with a warm place to sleep, hot water for showers, and so forth. And in addition to that, we gave them space to repair vehicles. We loaned them equipment. We gave them areas to provide storage for generators and that sort of thing. And that concludes my brief comments.
It's a pretty challenging department. The next department we'd like to hear from is our Special Projects Department. The construction, the renovation, and as we go forward, we've been seeking building permits and permits from each of the municipalities that govern those areas. And heading that department up is Mr. Bob Burton.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Just like to touch briefly on some of the special projects currently being worked on by PARC, some of which have already been mentioned. The first one, Main Supply Warehouse, number 2622, was a $1.3 million renovation project of an existing building, 100,000 square feet. Scope of work included new heating systems for all 3 bays, new lighting, office spaces, industrial equipment, painting and repair for the 1 bay, and the painting of the entire exterior, which was performed by the buildings and grounds people. The rest of the work was done by local contractors. Work was completed in June, and the building is currently occupied by Westinghouse Air Brake and warehouse space for Bombardier. Next one I'd like to just mention is the railing project, which I think is a very exciting project for the whole area. $1.9 million DOT-funded project to create 4,000 feet of new track and rehabilitate 9,500 feet of the existing track. It will provide a direct connection from the main link to the Friedenberg Spur, which is just north of Route 22. You've probably seen the crossing being worked on. When completed, the project will, current completion date is September 27th. It will provide access, improved railway access to the city of Plattsburgh, park tenants, and also provide access to the test facility being built by Bombardier, which I'll mention later on. Main hangar renovation project, $2.5 million renovation project for including the cleaning and painting of the interior. New natural gas-fired heaters, upgrading of the sprinkler system, rewiring the electrical and fire alarm systems, and a new compressed air system. This scope of work may change later on based on the needs of a specific tenant. Design work has been completed, as is some demolition and roof repair. Scheduled completion date is July of '99. Also planned is an Empire State Development Corporation funded project $500,000 for the renovation of a nose dock hangar. Independent heating system, project for the installation of dual-fueled heating systems in 16 buildings this year and more additional buildings next year. Funded by the Air Force to mutually benefit both PARC and the Air Force, and necessitated by the closing down of the central heating plant. Subdivision of 2 lots on Idaho Avenue. Surveying includes surveying and obtaining town of Plattsburgh approval for 2 lots on Idaho Avenue in preparation for the construction of 2 new buildings. Exterior insulation and finish systems. Project to insulate and provide new exterior finish for 2 existing buildings this year and 4 more in '99. Funded by Empire State Development Corporation. Project will reduce heating costs and make the buildings more attractive to prospective and existing tenants. And the last one I'd just like to mention, also an exciting project, Bombardier Incorporated is currently building a test track facility on property leased from PARC. It will provide, facility includes a large production building and test tracks and storage tracks for new rail cars. It will provide Bombardier the means to test rail cars prior to delivery to customers. Thank you.
The next department that would like to give a report will be our marketing department. Mike Sherman left the PARC organization on Friday to pursue some other careers, as well as relocate his family, I believe, to Florida, is what he told us. Perfect time to have that done. So we've asked Karen Gaznell, who's been in our marketing department now for a couple of years, who knows what our mission is and how we need to accomplish it. And Karen's going to give you a little report on where we're at with our marketing group.
Good morning. The marketing department is truly committed to PARC's mission, working together to develop new jobs and new opportunities for the social and economic well-being of the North Country, and doing so in a financially and environmentally sound manner. I often find myself quoting PARC's mission when speaking to potential tenants. Keeping our mission in mind, I would like to give you a brief summary of the marketing efforts being done here at PARC. Marketing campaigns. 5 separate marketing initiatives have been done this year. Please note the varied type of businesses we have approached. Our commitment is to bring diversified groups of new businesses to the North Country. Let me explain that when a marketing campaign is kicked off, a 3-part mailing is done at planned intervals, concluding with personal phone calls or visit to company headquarters. We have reached out to approximately 600 large and small companies. Trade shows. Another essential part of marketing is the trade show. We have attended 11 different trade shows throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. These trade shows have resulted in numerous leads. Prior to a trade show, a mailing is sent out to attendees and exhibitors. Customarily, a 200 to 300 piece mailing is done. We feel this gets our name and image out prior to a show. All contacts made at trade shows are followed up with a thank you letter. However, we do determine who are the top leads, and of course, a more precise follow-up action plan is taken. PARC annually budgets approximately $200,000 for its marketing efforts. Tours. We estimate that we have escorted 300 visitors to PARC, representing approximately 135 companies. Tours give the marketing team an excellent way to opportunity to display our valuable resources here at PARC. Our visitors leave very impressed. Our efforts have resulted with several new companies locating to PARC in the past year. New jobs have been created, and the economic impact is significant to the community. The results have been 13 new leases, 234 people working for PARC tenants, 4 outstanding MOUs, and 5 pending MOUs. Most recently, we have had the following company join our family of tenants. Marais Trenching, a company from near France, an international manufacturer of trenching equipment capable of tunneling through any type of terrain worldwide to lay pipeline and telecommunication cable networks. Trias Computer Supplies, a Canadian-based company which recycles computer components. Smith Broadcasting, which operates WFFF-TV Fox 44 under an agreement with Champlain Valley Television Incorporation of Burlington, Vermont. Optimism prevails in the marketing department. We are certain more announcements are on the horizon. I would be remiss not to mention the fact that when the final signature goes on a lease and the tenant occupies a building, it was positively a collaborative effort of the entire staff here at PARC. Everyone at PARC has a hand in landing a tenant, and I would personally like to thank the entire staff and the board of directors for their support. Please understand that our efforts are always complemented by the support of our state representatives and the Regional Economic Development Team. Thank you. I look forward to working with you all to develop new jobs and new opportunities for the North Country.
Thank you, Karen. Well, once we get him here, then we have to provide some services for him. So the next person to tell you what he does and what his department has contributed for the last year will be Bill Malott, who heads up our Tenant Services Department.
Good morning. I'd like to start out with the purpose of aviation and tenant services. We maintain the facilities occupied by the tenants to help in any manner needed to acquire new tenants and to expedite their movement into the new facilities. To account for, protect, and maintain the vast quantities of personal property left to us by the Air Force. To expedite the movement of new tenants in their new facilities. To ensure the proper procedures are followed prior to utilizing the airfield. Currently, the department has 3 full-time employees that handle all this work. Throughout the last year, we've submitted and coordinated lease applications to the Air Force. We've submitted 27 lease applications. We currently have a priority list with 25 lease applications pending. We coordinate required tenant leasehold improvements and renovations. During the last year, we worked with 13 new tenants to determine their needs for renovations and tenant improvements. We then coordinated that work either through our Buildings and Grounds section or our Special Projects Office. We provide tools, equipment, to be tools, computers, desk chairs, vehicles, to the tenants. We work with the new tenants to match the needs with the personal property PARC has access to on base. We then coordinate with Buildings and Grounds to move this property and then provide the tenant, the Air Force, and PARC a complete list of this property for accountability. Along with this property, we have to clean, organize, and catalog the vast quantity of tools and equipment. Because the tools have not been used for several years, we have developed a corrosion control plan to protect and maintain the tools and equipment. When they are finally cleaned of any rust and dirt, a rust inhibitor is then applied. All tools and equipment have been relocated to central storage areas designed for continued protection and security. The corrosion control program is an ongoing program. In dealing with marketing, we try to help them with the numerous tours that are given each month. We ensure the tours proceed as smoothly as possible by making the facilities ready. When needed, we provide the detailed knowledge on facilities, including utility estimates, renovation or code requirements, and the costs associated with them. We can also provide a wide range of knowledge and expertise on tools and equipment here. We coordinate with Buildings and Grounds the movement of storage of all personal property on base. Because the number of leases PARC has done, there is a constant need to reorganize the base. The numerous vehicles, tools, furniture needs to be relocated from the newly leased buildings into other facilities. After each move is completed, the Air Force's database is then updated to show the new locations. And finally, with the airfield, we submit the proper requests to the AFBCA so that the airfield is licensed for use when needed. We then provide the required notifications to both FAA and the AFBCA for landing of the aircraft. Not counting the air show, last year we landed 10 aircraft. And that's all.
Thank you, Bill.
The next department that we're going to have explain a little bit about what they do is a new department which has been created the last couple of years. First of all, the EIP, the Echo Industrial Park, which we're finding a tremendous amount of interest on across the world, and more importantly in the aviation side of it, because people in the aviation industry refer to airplanes as being environmental nightmares, okay? So the purpose that we have an Echo Industrial program started here proved to be very, very interesting to the heads of the aerospace industry that I just recently spent some time with. Along with that department, we've incorporated our EBZ and our other benefit programs that the state and federal government has to offer. And heading that program up, joining our staff, is we paid him for 2 years as a consultant, and I made him a deal he couldn't refuse to put some money back into our budget. Bruce Stedman.
Thank you. The Economic Development Zone, and I've reported on this a couple of times recently, so I'll go through it quickly. New York State's EDZ program offers certified business in the zone, tax credits and other incentives based on jobs created and total capital investment. These incentives improve bottom line performance and overall competitiveness. PARC was awarded its EDZ designation in July of '98. And by the way, I know you've heard a lot of acronyms this morning, and we've talked about EDC and PBT and others. EDZ is separate and distinct. It's Economic Development Zone, and it's sponsored by New York's Empire State Development Corporation. Let's just put the map up real quick, and then I'll come back to that. Just so you have a sense of what this is, any certified business located within a zone, and there are 52 across the state, and each zone is approximately 2 square miles. Any business located in the zone, if eligible, is allowed to take certain tax credits. There are grants available based on number of jobs and total capital investment. It's a tremendous marketing tool to keep PARC and other parts of the city and county competitive with Vermont, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and other parts of the country. And it's going to be a terrific thing for us to use as we market world-class aviation tenants. New York State provides some budget money for us, and for that we are asked to match it, a total of $41,000. We've completed orientation and training sessions. We're just about geared up and ready to go. There's a few other things to be done administratively. We've submitted our annual marketing plan to Albany, and next week the formal contract application will be submitted. And then finally, as the last item in review here, we've approached the city in an effort to eliminate some redundancies and reduce overall costs. We've proposed to the city that we jointly administer our zone in conjunction with the city's administration of their zone and the Clinton County IDA's zone. And not only will it reduce costs and eliminate redundancies, but it'll promote a joint effort for the entire region in terms of marketing and approaching economic development. So what's next for us? We are preparing the contract application, as I mentioned. We are participating in a workshop with the city the end of this month or early October to attract all existing businesses, not only in our zone, but in the city and county zones, to make them aware of the incentives, and then to canvass who is interested and eligible for receiving some of these incentives. And then finally, we are using everything that we've learned to go out and market and attract world-class aviation and other companies to the area. The EIP, the Echo Industrial Park. The EIP project is a combination of programs and tools, both at PARC and throughout the region, to enable business to create both economic value and environmental value. The results are reduced cost, increased revenues, and enhanced competitive positioning. Now, you've heard me talk about this a lot up to the last 2 or 3 months, and we've been engaged with other things, but we haven't forgotten EIP. We've been working on it carefully and assertively with 3 or 4 key prospective tenants. A list of some of the things completed, and I'll go through it quickly. We completed our implementation plan, for which we were funded by the Office of Economic Adjustment, and that's available if you care to have a copy. We've initiated PARC's ISO 14001 program. This will establish PARC in a small group of world-class facilities around the world who have an environmental management system standardized and certified to this ISO standard. We've completed our Ecotech Innovation Center strategic plan, for which we received funding through Empire State Development Corp. A copy of that is available if you care to have one. We held the first EIP Stakeholders Conference in January on the coldest, snowiest day we could find. We got about 12 or 15 inches of snow that day, but we had 105 people in attendance, speakers from around the country, and I think those of you who attended will agree it was a great morning. We've organized EIP task forces at both of the colleges, and a number of people at both colleges are involved. We're looking at making changes to courses. We're looking at creating new courses, and in fact, Clinton Community is actually committed to establishing 3 new courses, and Plattsburgh State is working on a whole new curriculum changes, emphasizing environmental management and sustainable development. We've created the first EIP Industrial Roundtable, which has about 20 members, and we were meeting on a monthly basis up until about 3 or 4 months ago. All of the key manufacturers in the area are involved, and they all see it as a value-added way to reduce costs and improve competitiveness. We've completed funding applications, not only to those that you've heard earlier, but to USDA, the National Environmental Education Training Foundation in Washington, and the US EPA to continue to help us fund and keep this important project going. And we've conducted over 75 individual stakeholder and prospective tenant meetings in the last 12 months. In preview, our intention is to continue PARC's ISO 14001 program. We see that as critical as positioning PARC as a premier and choice location for world-class companies. We've developed and are about to implement an EIP continuous improvement plan for PARC's tenants. We are marketing the EIP and sustainability themes to all prospective tenants, and as Dan mentioned, 3 or 4 key prospects that we're working with see this as a very important and choice factor for that, why they've selected PARC to be on their short list of preferred locations. We're continuing to work with Plattsburgh State and Clinton Community on the courses and the curriculum changes, and we're developing a funding and startup plan for the Ecotech Innovation Center, which you'll hear more about soon. Personally, I'd like to say that it's been a real pleasure to come aboard and to take Dan's offer that I couldn't refuse. The staff has been tremendously great to work with, and so is Dan and the board, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the next department that would like to give a presentation is a very sensitive area right now. But I have to tell you that Robin Elbert has put in an extraordinary amount of time and effort in creating for the community, for the North Country, opportunities for people to come into the area and take part and utilize our facilities. Currently, we're all waiting to have a review of the air show budget and cost analysis, which is prepared and will be presented to the board in executive session later on this morning, and then be public knowledge immediately following if everything is in line. But an extremely difficult task, and one of the things we can't overlook within this department is every time we do this, a new person who has not been exposed to the assets of PARC and the North Country arrive in Plattsburgh to enjoy the community. And Robin, her first year at trying to put this together, I think has done an admirable job. And I'd like Robin to share with you some of the things that have gone on in the past. Robin?
Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. The central mission of the Special Events Department is to ensure the social, culture, recreational, and educational opportunities for Clinton County's residents and visitors while preserving and enhancing Park's ability to accomplish its central mission, the creation of new jobs and the attraction of new industries. This morning's special events presentation is broken into two parts: major projects undertaken by Park in the last year, and secondly, events hosted at Park. Exactly 1 year ago, Park played host to Joe Walsh, rock and roll veteran and a former member of the Eagles. A warm-up band as well as a special guest band were also present. This was a major undertaking with only 4 weeks preparation time. Local law enforcement agencies, the county health department, and local food vendors made my job very easy and fun in preparing for this event. Just 3 months ago, and for the second time, Park played host to the Plattsburgh North Country Chamber of Commerce monthly business after hours. For those of you unfamiliar with this event, it is one of the Chamber's most popular functions, a networking event linking business people to business people. Although a relatively easy event to plan for, this was a super way for Park to welcome the community to its beautiful grounds and to show and tell all who attended what has taken place here since Park's inception. All tenants were invited, and several participated by setting up tabletops under the tent set up on the Park Oval. July 4th Festival. Held on our nation's birthday, this annual event, initiated around 25 years ago by the U.S. Air Force, then hosted by the city of Plattsburgh, and now undertaken under the auspices of Park, has grown into a major community event. From country and western music to clowns to dancing demonstrations to Uncle Sam, and of course to the favorite highlight of the evening, the traditional July 4th fireworks, the event was enjoyed by thousands, despite the prevailing rain, which never keeps North Country residents away. Being a community, family-oriented event, this is a fun one to plan. The July 4th Committee, as well as Clinton County volunteer firefighters, are instrumental in the success of this event. At this time, I would like to thank Agency Insurance Brokers, the July 4th Festival sponsor, the City of Plattsburgh, the Town of Plattsburgh, and Falcon Cable TV, the fireworks sponsors, and of course, WVNY TV, Wiry Hometown Radio, and the Press Republican are media sponsors for the event. And of course, our major special event for this summer, the Lake Champlain International Air Show. Almost from the start, we kept hearing from everyone, we can't wait for the planes to return to Plattsburgh. I don't think anyone who attended the show was disappointed. It was first class. Many, many months, long days, and hard work went into the preparation for this event. Hundreds of volunteers, including 8 volunteer directors, worked very hard to get the show off the ground, no pun intended. From the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds to the U.S. Army Golden Knights to Kent Shockley Shockwave jet truck to our own Jim Drolette, along with dozens of static display aircraft, 16,000 plus attendees were constantly thrilled, amazed, and entertained, simply put, happy to have air power once again back home. It was a reunion in so many ways for pilots, performers, military retirees, and the community. Again, local law enforcement agencies, Clinton County Emergency Preparedness, the county's health department, South Plattsburgh Fire Department, several nonprofit agencies, service organizations, individual volunteers, and many, many others were instrumental in the preparation and planning for this event. As Park was the major sponsor for the inaugural event, dozens of other area businesses contributed to the show. Nexus Technologies, Bill Santa Pontiac, Pepsi, Kinney Drugs, Napa Auto Parts, Frontier Cellular, and all local media, just to name a few. The air show boded very well for several local businesses as hotel rooms and restaurants were full, car rentals were at a premium, and LCT added an extra boat for the weekend. The air show was an excellent marketing tool for Park, as many prospective tenants were invited to the show and shown several buildings related to their area of expertise. Several events were held at Park in the last year, hosted by other organizations and businesses in the area. To name a few, ANCA, which is the Adirondack North Country Alliance, Northern Regional Meeting. The City of Plattsburgh held their Lake City Distance Festival Road Race Series. The FAA held their safety seminar here last October. CVPH held the blood drive here twice. The Clinton County Historical Association Antique Car Show and Car Meet. This was their 5th annual event and the 3rd one held here at Park. And finally, Governor Pataki's Thank You Icebreaker Picnic just several weeks ago. As you may have known, either driving by or having a school-aged child involved in sports, for the last 3 years, Park has leased the recreation fields on both the old and new base to the City of Plattsburgh and Town of Plattsburgh, respectively. Several area school teams and organized leagues have held practices, games, sectionals, and tournaments on the fields, with roughly 2,000 players participating over a 7-day period from April through October, with hundreds of spectators in attendance. In closing, I would like to recognize 2 groups who are instrumental in making special events happen here at PARC. First, the Base Conversion Agency, headed by John Haru. John and his staff have been a pleasure to work with, obtaining the necessary licenses through the U.S. Air Force needed for an event and other important items such as the borrowing of equipment or the entry to a building. Thank you, John. And secondly, the Buildings and Grounds Department. The plumbers, electricians, engineers, locksmith, structures, administration, contracting, vehicle maintenance, pavements and grounds, and the heat plant crew.
Denny Doyle has done a tremendous job. A week and a half ago on Friday afternoon, as I was packing my bags, preparing to leave town for a week to go to a meeting, I left an agenda of things that had to be accomplished coming into this meeting. And all of the reports, all of the preparation, all of the organization and structure of this event today would not have occurred without Denny Doyle, who heads up our public relations for PARC. And since my being here and prior to, I think Denny has just done a great job. Humble as he may be, he didn't want to stand up here and talk about his department because he said, I really don't offer anything to the operation, but I think he offers a lot. And Denny, if you would please stand up so everyone knows you. And I'd like to publicly thank you for all your efforts. At the same time, there's other people who bring all of this about. We could have never done it without Ken Hines, who's our base coordinator, our liaison with the Air Force, our transition guy who helps with the OEA and helps with the Air Force and everything else that we're doing. And he's been in my office very early in the morning to late hours at night, on Saturdays and Sundays, contributing. And just because one of his bosses is here today, I'm not really tying that in with Brian Monroe, who happens to be here, who also brings a lot of money to the table for PARC. John Haru, his staff, the environmental guys upstairs, the engineers. None of this could go on without a team effort and a participation by all of these players. My job happens to be the easiest of all because I just kind of orchestrate the whole thing. And sometimes I get in trouble for it, and sometimes everything goes pretty smooth. But one thing we will commit to the community is you get a good, honest effort. The board has been so supportive in what we're doing with our new tenants. It's pretty exciting if you think about it. Let's go back a couple of months. You know, we've got the Purcell Group out here in Lake Forest Senior Living, breaking ground and completing their work and starting that whole project. We've got Chris here, Assemblyman Ortloff, who's been on the base for a lot this weekend with the Battle of Plattsburgh and the National Park and the National Cemetery. We've got the soccer games going on. You know, I tell you what, when I came home Friday and I walked over here, in fact, on Saturday and saw all the action going on and the tenants and the people and the life starting to occur. It's pretty exciting. And you have our pledge as a team that this will continue going into the future. One of the things that we, just to talk about the future a little bit, is PARC is currently looking, when you heard Bob Burns talk about subdividing some land, we've subdivided this lot here and this lot here. We're looking to put a 75,000 square foot new building here and a 100,000 square foot building here, and this will be reserved for future sites. This building will probably be split up for 2 tenants. This building here, the 100,000 square foot building, will be for one specific tenant, okay, who we hope to be announcing in the very, very near future. You may ask, with all of this space on the base, why are these people starting to build buildings? Well, we do not have any buildings 75 or 100,000 square feet left for industrial use. We also have no buildings left that have docks loading docks for them or rail siding. So if you look here, this development site that we're first talking about runs right next to the rail link, so we'll be able to put rail sidings into these buildings. At the same time, we've had several meetings with the CCIDA about developing this section along Sharon Avenue, which you've heard about, which we will be making a presentation to the board this morning in the executive session. Just to give you a little close-up view of what we're looking at here, these are the lots. Here's your rail link coming down the back, okay? And these are the proposed new buildings that we're talking about. At the same time, we've tried to collectively put some information together. We're doing a new 4-part brochure. This is just 2 of the sections that you see, but it'll be a fold-over, an easy place to access, which shows a map, because when we're talking to people around the world, they don't realize that you can ship as effectively from Plattsburgh, New York, via ocean liner, okay, and freight terminals through Montreal, as you can from the city in Elizabeth, New Jersey, Baltimore, Maryland, and Philadelphia. Our effectiveness going to Montreal is cost efficient, and it's only an hour away. At the same time, people don't realize how far away we are, because when you're talking about international companies coming from Germany, Europe, the flight pattern really comes across this way, okay? So if they need a hub or a place to stop coming into the United States, Plattsburgh happens to be a pretty good choice, okay? And we've got some people looking at that. When you go south, we're really, 4.5, 5 hours from New York City. We're 4 hours from Boston. And further west, we're really 8 to 10 hours from Chicago and everything along that corridor. So we've positioned ourselves pretty good, and we want to tell everybody that, so our new brochure will provide that information. A great place to live. We have diversity year-round, recreation, excellent education, 2 colleges and cities, schools, clean, safe opportunity, abundant, affordable housing, and a cultural hub of North America. I think we've got a lot to talk about, okay, and we offer a lot to the world. The other 2 folds on this brochure, the right facilities for success, okay? We have a world-class runway. I just attended the Farnborough Air Show in England, where there was 40,000 people a day for a week at an air show. And world-class aerospace aviation executives. And for them to understand that we've got a 12,000-foot-long runway, 300 feet wide, and 270 acres of ramp area. We have all the hangars, the nose docks, and where we're located on this world scene, a lot of ears perked up. State-of-the-art facilities, the rail service adjacent to the interstate highway. We start to look at the west side of the ramp, the wide range of commercial and industrial sites available over the next few months. So when we announce some of our tenants, you're going to be impressed with kind of what they're going to be using these facilities for. And everything your business needs to succeed. We have a highly skilled workforce. We have an education system that's open to help us to train and develop the workforce for our future tenants. We have financial incentives that are brought to the table by people like Assemblyman Ortlaw, Senator Stafford, and the mayor, and the governor, and everybody through Empire State, New York State, have really stepped up to the table to help us. The location and relocation assistance and low-cost energy. We're in the midst of negotiating contracts with NISAC on gas and electric. The Air Force has given us approval to start running our gas lines to convert our buildings from a central heat plant to independent heat systems, which will have 2 sources of heat. We will provide fuel source for fuel oil as a backup, and the boilers will be equipped to go either way, which allows us to obtain the most economic pricing on natural gas that's available in the North Country, because we have the backup source. So if you need natural gas for your home, they can shut our industrial use down, provide the natural gas to you, and for allowing the gas company to have that availability. They provide us with a special low rate. The initial cost is a little bit higher for the setup, but down the road, it'll come back in spades to our tenants and future tenants at PARC. And the fact that we're currently capitalizing on every possible economic incentive that's available in the state, through the state, and through the federal government. And at this point, I'd just like to recap my report and thank my staff, and thank the board for their support, and I look forward to a very prosperous 98, 99 year. Thank you.
Okay. You have before you, I believe, a resolution to approve the actions of the directors in the past year. I'll read it.
So moved.
Motion by Gil. Second by Marion. Any questions or all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any old business?
Randy, before we
Yeah.
go ahead, I think we should congratulate Dan and the staff for not only putting on a good presentation and the good work they did, but I thought the report today, the annual presentation by the department heads and Dan was just excellent, and I think it was very helpful for people to get a better picture of all that goes on at PARC and how successful PARC has really become. I'd like that into the minutes.
Okay. Any old business? Do I have any new business? What I'd like to take the opportunity, which you kind of beat me, Gil, sorry. I would like to take this opportunity in a new business to simply thank a number of people, and I probably should have done it under my chairman's report, and I apologize, but first I'd like to thank the funding agencies. I see Brian is here. Without their help, we don't survive. But not only is it their help, but their support at all times, and we certainly appreciate it. I'd also like to thank my fellow board members for their dedication and the time that they've taken out of their busy schedules, and it's quite a lot of time, I'm afraid, at times. I'd like to thank our former president, Mark Berry, as well as Dan Winnicky, our present president, and his staff for a job well done. Noting what Gil said for an excellent report, I think. And also the group that we kind of forget at times unless we want to yell at somebody, and that's the Base Conversion Agency, and John Haru and your staff, John, thank you. And I think the other thanks needs to go from all of us to our members, Governor George Pataki, John McHugh, Senator Stafford, Chris Orloff, Don Garrett, Andy Abdullah, and Mayor Clyde Bradford. With that, I'd like to open the session back up to the public. Does anybody have any questions of anybody who spoke today, or any observations or comments? We scared them all to death.
I don't have a question, but I thought it'd be appropriate at this time to take a moment off for the passing away of Mr. Gary Douglas, his wife, just a few days ago.
I guess the only other thing we have is a motion to go to executive session. Motion by Peter. After a break, yes. Motion by, second by Henry. All in favor?
Aye.
Take a 15, 20-minute break, whatever's needed. Thank you.
projects. This is my favorite slide because I think it's showing that we're spending the money in places where we ought to be spending the money. 51% of our budgeted funds is coming from construction, or is going to construction, and 15%, the salaries are broken out between redevelopment and buildings and grounds. I did that so you could get a sense for the caretaker money, which I said was our primary funding source. There's 15% in salaries and fringe. However, you can't really look at that as overhead because it's actually the people that are providing the work and support to keep these properties maintained. 19% of it is just the other administrative costs associated with buildings and grounds. It's actually purchasing materials to keep the buildings intact. 4% is redevelopment, salaries and fringe. 2% is marketing, that also includes travel for marketing. 3% for other administrative costs. And 2% for landlord renovations and other services. That's when we have to go into a building. If we have a tenant that needs to be in there in a very short period of time, we go in there and we try to get the building up to code and getting it ready for occupancy, and maybe providing some other services if necessary. 4% for heat, utilities, insurance, and rents. The others I've already spoken about. That's about it.
Next we'll have Art Graves. Art heads up our Buildings and Grounds Department. He coordinates the budget with the Air Force, and all these guys you see running around repairing all of the services and keeping this place looking the way it is. It's totally Art's responsibility.
Thank you, Dan. Make Bruce's job easy here. I have one slide, a few brief comments. I'll just touch on some salient points. The details, I think, you can find in the annual report and the handouts that are available outside. Buildings and Grounds has as its mission to satisfy the requirements of the caretaker agreement. That's our primary mission. Secondly, but equally as important, we support PARC's redevelopment efforts. To do that, we have 45 permanent workers and about 10 temporary or seasonal workers. An example of some of a bit of the financial impact that Buildings and Grounds has on the area. We currently oversee 12 contracts that are valued at about $2 million. 10 of those 12 contracts are with local firms. In addition to that, we purchase, as you can see, over $800,000 worth of materials and equipment. More than 60% of that are from local vendors. Some of the work accomplishments during the past year, we do renovations, asbestos abatement, and demolition in virtually every building that is prepared for a PARC tenant. Two of the biggest this year were the supply building. That's a 100,000 square foot building that currently houses the Westinghouse Air Brake Company and Bombardier. We also did 5 what we call incubator buildings. Those are buildings 6,000 square feet up to 14,000 square feet that we make available for companies that are moving into the area and will hopefully expand into larger buildings. Workers have been in that area, in spite of the ice storm. and the snow and ice that accumulated out there. Within 4 weeks after the ice storm, we were able to land a 747 wide-body jet out there. So they're doing a terrific job. Maintaining roads and grounds, that's another area that is easily evident. All you have to do is drive by the base. We get a lot of comments about the fine work that the buildings or the roads and grounds fellows are doing. Special events, we support any of the special activities that Robin puts on for us. We provide support to set up, as well as assist the people that are putting on those shows during the events, take care of any last-minute problems that they might have. Finally, I think everybody knows about the ice storm. One of the things that we're really proud about here is that within hours after the ice storm, we were able to restore power to the entire facility here on the base through our own 46,000 volt transmission line. Our fellows got out, cleared the roads, made it possible for the base to effectively reopen by the weekend, which was a good thing because then we were able to provide a good deal of support to the community. We unpickled 8 buildings that had previously been closed, and at the peak of the relief effort, we were housing over 1,200 volunteers, providing them with a warm place to sleep, hot water for showers, and so forth. And in addition to that, we gave them space to repair vehicles. We loaned them equipment. We gave them areas to provide storage for generators and that sort of thing. And that concludes my brief comments.
It's a pretty challenging department. The next department we'd like to hear from is our Special Projects Department. The construction, the renovation, and as we go forward, we've been seeking building permits and permits from each of the municipalities that govern those areas. And heading that department up is Mr. Bob Burke.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Just like to touch briefly on some of the special projects currently being worked on by PARC, some of which have already been mentioned. The first one, Main Supply Warehouse, number 2622, was a $1.3 million renovation project of an existing building, 100,000 square feet. Scope of work included new heating systems for all 3 bays, new lighting, office spaces, industrial equipment, painting and repair for the 1 bay, and the painting of the entire exterior, which was performed by the buildings and grounds people. The rest of the work was done by local contractors. Work was completed in June, and the building is currently occupied by Westinghouse Air Brake and warehouse space for Bombardier. Next one I'd like to just mention is the railing project, which I think is a very exciting project for the whole area. $1.9 million DOT-funded project to create 4,000 feet of new track and rehabilitate 9,500 feet of the existing track. It will provide a direct connection from the main link to the Friedenberg Spur, which is just north of Route 22. You've probably seen the crossing being worked on. When completed, the project will, current completion date is September 27th. It will provide access, improved railway access to the city of Plattsburgh, park tenants, and also provide access to the test facility being built by Bombardier, which I'll mention later on. Main hangar renovation project, $2.5 million renovation project for including the cleaning and painting of the interior. New natural gas-fired heaters, upgrading of the sprinkler system, rewiring the electrical and fire alarm systems, and a new compressed air system. this scope of work may change later on based on the needs of a specific tenant. Design work has been completed, as is some demolition and roof repair. Scheduled completion date is July of '99. Also planned is an Empire State Development Corporation funded project, $500,000 for the renovation of a nose dock hangar. Independent heating system, a project for the installation of dual-fueled heating systems in 16 buildings this year and more additional buildings next year. Funded by the Air Force to mutually benefit both PARC and the Air Force, and necessitated by the closing down of the central heating plant. Subdivision of 2 lots on Idaho Avenue. Surveying includes surveying and obtaining town of Plattsburgh approval for 2 lots on Idaho Avenue in preparation for the construction of 2 new buildings. Exterior insulation and finish systems. Project to insulate and provide new exterior finish for 2 existing buildings this year and 4 more in '99. Funded by Empire State Development Corporation. Project will reduce heating costs and make the buildings more attractive to prospective and existing tenants. And the last one I'd just like to mention, also an exciting project, Bombardier Incorporated is currently building a test track facility on property leased from PARC. It will provide, facility includes a large production building and test tracks and storage tracks for new rail cars. It will provide Bombardier the means to test rail cars prior to delivery to customers. Thank you.
The next department that would like to give a report will be our marketing department. Mike Sherman left the park organization on Friday to pursue some other careers, as well as relocate his family, I believe, to Florida, is what he told us. Perfect time to have that done. So we've asked Karen Gaznell, who's been in our marketing department now for a couple of years, who knows what our mission is and how we need to accomplish it. And Karen's going to give you a little report on where we're at with our marketing group.